Hello and welcome to the Ffonseca family household weblog. It's going to be a sort of a diary, recording for our children and possibly grandchildren, and of course if it's discovered by researchers in 100 years or so from now, they'll be more than welcome to use it to show we weren't all warmongering violent chancers back in the 21st century. Some of us are very ecologically aware and very pro keeping the planet healthy and safe for our future, so you'll have people like me to thank. I don't think there's anything wrong with subscribing to Stevie Wonder's sentiment. What's that, Jocasta? No, never mind, the bollocks was the Sex Pistols. I'm sorry for the swearing, but in context, LSD it's not, but Mr. Merlot alters minds as well. So anyway, as I was saying, I'm going to be keeping this log whenever I can, bearing in mind that we all have careers and youngsters to look after. I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Zachary Ffonseca. My wife is Jocasta. My eldest is Annunziata, and following a little behind is Jeb. We are a nuclear family. I mean, not a nuclear family. It wouldn't be fitting really for a council ecology officer to like nuclear things, would it? Now, nasty atom stuff. Atomkraft 9 Denker. No, I meant as a family, as a whole item surrounding the catalyst, who I guess is little old me. What? Nunzi, could you just close the door? Mummy's talking rubbish. Just a minute. Thanks, darling. So, that's better. Now, where was I? Oh yes, we're just an ordinary old family trying to make our way in the world. I hope you tune in to us again. Bye-bye. Hello and welcome once again to the Ffonseca family weblog. Thanks very much for joining me. I wanted to share some rather exciting news. My daughter Nunzi has been selected, along with her schoolmates, to take part in a nationwide science research project. The project involves mapping and cataloguing all the flora and fauna that one can find around the riverbank and in parts of the river, though I hope it's not going to be the deep parts of the river, obviously. It's very exciting because, as you know, I'm the ecology officer for the council, and so this is right up my river, if you excuse the pun. Now, Nunzi is a very, very intelligent young lady, and she is within a gnat's whisker, we believe, of being accepted onto the gifted and talented register. Now, I can't think where she gets her intelligence from, but I'm sorry, Jocasta? Yes, well, I don't think necessarily a maths degree trumps a philosophy degree, does it? It really depends upon what the holder does with the degree, don't you think? I'm sorry? Right. I think we can hear Mr. Merlot talking again, can't we? I said nothing. Sorry, no, Jocasta, no. No, get back! Back! No, Jocasta! No! The children. Goodness sake, the children can't witness that sort of behaviour. No! The time is coming when I will take no more of that. Really. I'm sorry about that. Anyway, where was I? Mrs. Dobbs at school has promised Jocasta that Nunzi is definitely second reserve for a place on the gifted and talented register. So, if she can pull the stops out on this project, I think we can safely see her move up the ladder. Jocasta thought we might help a little. Cheat is what I said, but I do see her point. Something to nudge Nunzi's profile a little. Now, believe in serendipity or not, I bumped into old Toby, a mate of mine from student days. He's a bit of a herpetologist. Jocasta says he owes her big time, so we should ask for his help. I'm not sure why he owes her. She never had any money to lend me at university, assuming it was money. Still, I suppose borrowing something a tad less ordinary for Nunzi to discover might just get her out of the reserves. Jocasta's helping with the field trip, so she'll be on help to help Nunzi discover the frog or whatever. It's not something I'm too comfortable with, to be honest. But it's not really cheating, more a way of guaranteeing Nunzi will at least get her own frog. It's a dog-eat-dog world, and the sooner she realises it, the better. I'll keep you posted on how we get on. Bye-zy-bye. Well, I hate to say I told you so, but I said to Jocasta that I didn't think a caiman, dwarf-sized or any other size, even a nano-sized one that was stuffed, was a brilliant idea, but she insisted she thought it a plausible find on an English riverbank. After all, she said, there have been rumours of a dumped croc in the river for ages. True enough, I said, but the people most likely to believe it are hardly going to be involved in serious scientific research, are they? I couldn't resist an incisive, witty comment. I said, her friends from the wine club might be gullible, but no normal person. I think that struck home, because it got no reaction from her. Anyway, her coat's ripped, and she's lost the tip of her finger. And poor Nunzi has this wide-eyed stare, which won't leave her face. Oh, and she won't go to bed in case the monster returns. Pretty bloody perfect. And on top of all this, Toby's demanding I catch the damn thing and return it forthwith. I mean, why me? I'm the lone voice of reason in this madhouse. I hate water at the best of times. I have no great wish to paddle about in mud and reeds while a crocodile measures me up for supper. I mean, really, quite frankly, it's just unbelievable. I just don't know what I'm going to do. Oh. Just bring that one, please. Yes, it's me. Of course, officer. Of course. At the river. Right away. I have to go and meet the police. Well, I've just got back from the river. We don't need to worry about the caiman. I can give it back to Toby tomorrow. The policeman had it in a sack. He dangled it in front of me when I got out of the car. Don't worry about it biting you, sir, he said. I ran it over. Bloody mess. How am I going to square this with Toby? I very clearly recall saying to Jocasta, what is wrong with the frog? But she went all sniffy on me, saying we couldn't have put a blue and orange poison arrow frog in the river as it's not a native species. Well, what's a bloody crocodile then, I said. I hope Toby doesn't sue us. I've no idea what he's going to say when I tell him his beloved caiman is pushing up the daisies. Just a minute. Hello and welcome to the weblog once more. I'm afraid Mrs. Snarley had to go to the doctors about the missing tip of her finger. But she should be back. Oh, she's back now. Ah, hello Jocasta. How did it go? No, what? Get off, woman! No! I started laughing. Welcome to the Fonseca family weblog. Well, we're off to Cornwall. We're going to St Ives. We've got a lovely little self-catering apartment there. The children are excited. I'm excited. We need to get out and about in nature. The children need to get wet and wild and rained on and get sand in their hair and see some wildlife, some seals perhaps and some seabirds. It's going to be such fun. Jocasta's a little miffed we're not going to Bordeaux, but I said that the children really wouldn't enjoy visiting vineyards as much as they will surfing and building sand castles. We haven't been to Bordeaux since our honeymoon. You know, Jocasta's a really good role model for the children and she would die for them. She's a Wonder Woman, a real Wonder Woman. But when Mr. Merlot is involved, she can be a little difficult, shall we say. So, here we go, into the wild countryside. Oh yeah, bring it on. as they say. Bye. Well, good evening. Welcome to the Fonseca family weblog. Nice to see you again. We've just come back from the pub, and a little earlier than we planned because they don't do cooking on Sundays, which is a bit disappointing. Nevertheless, we have had a very nice time. The children especially have filled up on pork scratchings and Coca-Cola, and Jocasta has filled up on some wine. I too have had a couple of little shandies. So, eventually the children have stopped banging into walls and screaming and chasing themselves around the cottage and have gone to bed. Speaking of which, the cottage, I really don't think Jocasta should have messed with the cottage's name. She's very clever linguistically, but Nunzi has picked up on it already, and Jeb too, I fear. The cottage's name is Fox Acre Cottage. It's really not wise to say things like, let's call it fuck's sake a cottage, in front of little ones. It'll end in tears, I know it will. Anyway, we did meet some of the locals, which was very nice. In particular, a young man called Reese and his girlfriend Rose. Jocasta got on very well with them. She does, with the younger set. She gels with them. There was lots of giggling and whispering together. They all found me very amusing for some reason. I thought it was smashing. I'm not too clear why, but their vocabulary is possibly a little limited down here, although I'm sure they've heard the word strawberry before, but when I said it to them, they seemed to find it very amusing. It had a peculiar effect on Jocasta. She abandoned Mr. Merlot last night in favour of Mr. Rioja and Mr. Riesling. I have no idea why. It must be the sea air. Anyway, it's quite a novel experience. I really rather enjoyed it. So, tomorrow we have a little adventure. We're going to see some llamas. We may do some abseiling. We shall see. But I have a little treat for you. Nunzi has done a rather nice picture of the family. Can you see it? This little Jeb, one end, Nunzi, and then Jocasta, and then me. And we've all got our arms around each other. Isn't that lovely? So, good night for now. Bye. As you can see, a slight mishap has befallen me. This is Jocasta's fault, and this contraption is a Heath Robinson attempt to prevent further injury to my neck, but it also prevents me looking upon the traitoress. It is not, as Jocasta so crudely put it, to stop me licking my arse. You see, Jocasta and her new friends at the pub were delighting in more of the Rocky Road, strawberry or raspberry daiquiri orders they made me take. And they were actually laughing at me, not just being very convivial. What gave it away was that Reese was called Tim by the erstwhile Rose, who turned out to be Maggie. And what hurts most of all, apart from my bloody neck, is that Jocasta was part of the whole thing. Indeed, she encouraged them. Well, I am no man's patsy, and I remonstrated with Reese, or Tim, for his duplicity. He, of course, is younger than me and quicker. And when he pushed me back, I went into the flower bed. And it was while I was extricating myself from the hydrangea that I ripped my neck. It hurts like bloody hell. But what hurts more is Jocasta and her betrayal of me. I cannot control my impediment. But it should not be used to ridicule me. Anyway, I have that off my chest now. So, the abseiling today It went very well. We were looked after by a very nice young man and his team from Tie It Tight, which I guess is a reassuring name for such a company. Mike told me just as I was beginning my descent that it was called that because once they didn't and almost lost their licence. I think he was joking. The children enjoyed it though. Apart from Jeb's wailing, which seemed to go on forever and ever, until Joe Caster realised that his finger was caught in the carabiner. Thereafter he managed only that descent, Nunzi only managed one descent, and I too chose only to descend once. But Joe Caster did several. She was reliving her youth, as the last time she'd done it, was down the outside of the accommodation block at college. Of course, at that point she only used a bedsheet, but that was probably because, even then, yes. We were unable to visit the llamas, unfortunately, today because there was a bout of camelid vomiting and sickness at the farm. Now, we don't know if it's transferable to humans, but it's probably best not to take the chance with two little ones. Hence the early return and visit to the pub. The enlightening visit to the pub, I should answer. I have not forgiven Joe Caster, by any means, but I will put on a show of unity for the children and for the outward bound stuff, as it is important that we keep together as a family unit and remain safe. Until my next report. Bye-bye. Just a quickie before kayaking later. Joe Caster has apologised for being cruel to me. She's very good at apologising, I'll give her that. She said it wasn't that she was being malicious, it's just that, well, I know her so well, she feels she can take risks with my affection. Well, that's all right then, I suppose. Anyway, she told me she loved me and she gave me a great big kiss, which was really nice. I do like those moments. Anyway, we decided to go to a restaurant to have a proper full breakfast to get ourselves ready for the kayaking later on today. Of course, my full English consists of vegetarian full English, which is basically just some fried bread and some mushrooms, but everyone else tucked in to bacon and sausage, etc. Anyway, young Jeb was taken a shine to by the lady who was serving us, and she asked him where he was from. Instead of saying Rutland, he responded by giving her our local address. Before I could jump in and say it for him, he had used Joe Caster's version of the same, and to a silent restaurant. His timing was impeccable. He shouted, "For fuck's sake, a cottage." I think my loud correction really just made it worse, really. As we left, I'm sure I saw Joe Caster smirking. Anyway, that's that. I'll sign off now, and I'll probably catch you later after the kayaking. Bye-bye. Kayaking. It was an eventful day today. It was magical. We paddled adjacent to sunlit, soaring cliffs, festooned with seabirds. We could even smell their fishy poo on the air. Seals would visit us occasionally, popping their heads out of the rushing waters and tide. I had Jeb with me on a dual kayak. Nunzi and Joe Caster each had their own single kayaks. There was a fair swell running today, and Every so often an extremely large wave would come in and it would smash into the base of the cliffs and the jagged rocks and boom into the sea caves beneath. It was thrilling, it was exciting. Jeb was having a whale of a time, and he was squealing whenever we had to force our way through the breaking white horses. A wave tipped me and Jeb off. I swam to him and yanked him back to the kayak, intending to reboard it. And then I saw a massive wall of water bearing down on us. I heard the instructors shout a warning to all of us, and I gripped Jeb and I clung with him to the upturned kayak. I hung on with all of my strength as it bore down on us, sucking us towards its base. I turned to look for Nunzi and Jocasta. Nunzi was closest to the cliffs, and Jocasta was shouting to her. I saw Nunzi scream, trying to paddle into it, but she wasn't strong enough. The wave crushed us and rolled on. I held Jeb firmly and kicked for the surface. And as we broke the surface, I turned and I looked, and I saw both kayaks spinning in the air. The wave climbed until it smashed into the cliff. And I saw both kayaks being battered and rammed and spun against the rocks. I saw no sign of Nunzi or Jocasta. I couldn't do anything. I had Jeb safe, but I couldn't see them. I realised I'd lost them. I knew the future then. Living but not living. I knew my heart was broken and it would never be mended. And as the wave rolled back, I saw Jocasta pop into view, and she had hold of Nunzi, and they were screaming and shouting, and the instructors rushed to them, and I realised what they were shouting and screaming about. They were laughing. They are peas in a pod, and Jeb and I are the luckiest men in a family in the world. So all in all, a good holiday. Until the next time, perhaps. Bye-bye. Hello once again, and welcome to the Ffonseca family weblog. Today is going to be very interesting. We're hosting a visit from a party of school children at the Ecology Centre. These children are coming from a school in the inner city, and we hope to be able to inspire them with a fervour for scientific discovery today. That's not assuming because they're from the inner city they haven't already got inspiration. I'm sure their teachers are doing a marvellous job. Whatever, we are hosting them at the Ecology Centre, and who knows, perhaps we'll be speaking to some of our future leaders or even future scientists, perhaps even a modern equivalent of Dr. David Bellamy, a particular hero of mine. Now, he is a great man. He really speaks my language. It's such a pity. He was so maligned in the press for his outspoken views on global warming. I feel his absence from TV diminishes us. Although I must make it clear that I absolutely refute his heel dragging over the causes of global warming and mankind's involvement in the same. We here at the Council are fully aligned with our colleagues and other authorities over this. Global warming absolutely does make sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense. It's actually very, very bad. Of course, we understand that. Global warming, nein danke. I shall no doubt be excited by and touched by the children later. Oh, that doesn't sound right, really, does it? I mean, thrilled, amazed is what I meant, by interacting with them. Yeah, I'm sorry, dear Custer. Yes, I think people will be less willing to think the worst than you believe. Besides, the netball team incident did not happen at a state school, and even if it had, and it was this same school who's visiting, they'd have all left and been to college by now, wouldn't they? And as you know, I did nothing wrong. And I wish you'd stop bringing it up. So, I'll update you later, perhaps, after the visit. I am so looking forward to inspiring these youngsters. Bye. Sorry. So, the visit to the Ecology Centre. Now, all of our previous visits have been sort of year 5 and 6 children who are about sort of 8 or 9 or 10 years old, and everything has always been prepared according to their needs. So we were a little dismayed when teenagers turned up, and they represented a broad spectrum of our multicultural melting pot in the inner cities, including, I guessed at one point, Eastern European. I'm afraid these lads took exception to my use of Serbian to them, since they were Kosovan Albanians, and as we know they don't particularly get on. And one or two of them looked as though they may have featured on recent episodes of Crime Watch. But there we are. It was most surprising when they arrived, because without more than just a cursory good luck, once they had entered the building and were, I guess, legally within our control and under our wing, the woman teacher debunked to the bus, which, rather amusing, it left extremely quickly in a cloud of dust and, it seemed, hastily struck up cigarettes. I mean, I didn't think teachers smoked anymore, let alone in school transport. I didn't think it was allowed. But anyway, at this point I thought it best to clarify the details, since the pupils didn't look like children who might attend the Calcutta Oratory City Primary, as we had expected. The loudest of the youths, who I found out later was called Anthony, told me they were actually from the Rude Boy Academy, of which I had never heard. I think he was being a bit disingenuous, but nevertheless we proceeded with our programme. Of course, things did not go well at first. The bus did return, but both driver and teacher stayed within it, the doors locked to keep their charges out. Since it began to rain, the pupils who had been wandering around the bus and milling next to it, trying to get into it like zombies, returned to the centre, although they were very reluctant to take the colouring sheets and pencils that we had provided for them. And when I suggested that we disport ourselves to the ecology garden to count the different flora and fauna within, the mood turned very ugly. So I thought it better to divert attention away from this to our fabulous technology, which is a wow in anybody's book. It was a masterstroke. Now, the technology seemed to be right up Anthony's street. He was very taken with our hydroponic sets and the seed tables, and he displayed some knowledge about hydroponics. And as we discussed it further, he became more and more animated, and he switched from calling me or referring to me as a mofo to bruv and blood, which I took to be an improvement. Anyway, I did have to point out though that Jackie, my assistant, was actually called Mrs. Stone and not MILF Buff Lady. And more used to controlling 8 and 9-year-olds, she was beginning to look a little shell-shocked. Now, the thing is, I'm sorry, I'm a natural mimic, and sometimes it's a curse and sometimes it's a blessing, and I do sometimes slip in and out of it unwittingly. What I meant to say was, the thing is that Anthony's interest was palpable. Later, at the end of the day, as we were shepherding the group back to their bus, and Jackie was reclaiming the seed trays, dehumidifier and micro generator from the boot of the bus, Anthony wanted to know if we wanted to sell the whole hydroponic set up to him and his badman friends in it. I said, what would he possibly do with it? And he took that as an expression of further interest. I remember he stared long and hard at me for an uncomfortably long time, and then he smiled, which in itself was quite intimidating. But anyway, when I was finally forced to say no again to him, he suggested that it might be okay, in his eyes, if we could let him rent the equipment and the facility for a few months at least. Again, I said no. Now, at this, he lapsed into his patois. Brethren, come round my crib and change my mind for me. Do ya get me? Is a rough approximation. I pointed out that it was not within my remit to sell or rent council property, and if he wanted some advice in that matter, he should really contact Councillor Peter Snoddy, who is the inventory holder for the council for the ecology centre. And I added in my own little joke, I said, in it. I think it was in the right context. Anyway, he responded that some tin dread happen in your crib. But as I have no crib, it didn't worry me unduly. And his parting shot as the bus pulled out was that I was not to contact the 5-0 or the feds. I assured him I wouldn't, even if I knew what they were. Shocking news from school. One of the parents was arrested today on a school run. It's caused quite a stir. It's Alan Fitzgerald. He's the financial director of local architect firm Crumb and Crumb. It seems he's been regularly robbing them. And the auditors only found out when they discovered the weekly direct debit in favour of his wife Audrey. What a horrible time it must be for him and his family. I'm sorry, Joe Costa. Well, I don't think that being quite so vituperative is becoming in one. Yes, well, no matter how satisfying hubris can be, I don't think there's any excuse for being uncharitable, all the same. Now, as much as I hate to profit from someone else's misfortune, it seems that poor little Fionella Fitzgerald, who was on the gifted and talented register, although I do think that place was and more to do with the payment for the school conservatory than any academic rigour on poor little Fonilla's part. Well, she'll have to leave school now, because I mean, really, how can her mother afford to pay the fees? I'm sorry, Jocasta. Right. Well, I don't think that you can in any way reasonably imply that Audrey Fitzgerald has ever earned her living on her back. She's a noted equestrian sportswoman. So your suggestion that her future can be seen writ large across her huge dimpled arse is not fair. Now, awful as it all is, this presents an opportunity for Nunzi. As you know, she's second reserve on the waiting list for the Gifted and Talented Register. Now, I'm no mathematician. I'm sorry, Jocasta. Yes. Nunzi, would you just pull the door to, please? Mummy's being unpleasant. Thank you, darling. I really don't like it when her smile doesn't reach her eyes. Ugh. I thought I'd hidden them all. Anyway, either Nunzi or Robert Napier will be eligible to take poor little Fonilla's place. Now, the Cayman incident of a few months ago might not be entirely bad. It did, after all, raise Nunzi's profile, and Jocasta's visit to A&E was noted in the press. I mean, who can forget? Brave mother loses tip of finger defending daughter from river croc. Marvellous. In Rutland. So, the loss of the tip of the finger, very heroic. I'm sure Homer would have rejoiced. And I don't mean Simpson. Loss of the finger was quite funny. Anyway, for now, bye-bye. Today it is the school fete, and we shall be attending, myself, Jocasta, Nunzi and Jeb. There's going to be all sorts of entertainment and fun, races and competitions and games, that sort of thing. And it's especially interesting this year because Jocasta's suspension from the egg and spoon race has expired. And she's very G'd up to reclaim her crown from Wendy Himmel, whose accusation caused Jocasta some embarrassment at the time. I certainly wouldn't have said it was an attempt to trip her up, and the shoulder barge was actually just Jocasta stumbling. However, I do hope they run the race before the Pym's tent has been found by Jocasta. The new headmistress, Mrs. Lannister, seemed very nice. Perhaps we can engage with her and Mrs. Dobbs later. We are keen to discuss Nunzi's forthcoming entry into the Gifted and Talented Register. We may be able to steal a march upon Robert Napier and his preposterous father. Don't you find human rights lawyers full of humbug and self-righteousness? And it's very galling listening to them spout about their wonderful concern for the human race. I believe they are currently, all of them, that is the whole family, abroad doing good works. I mean, how many goats can you deliver from a top-of-the-range Range Rover with personalised number plates? Yes, Jocasta. And if you sit still, Jocasta, you should be fine. The room will stop spinning. Nunzi, look after Mummy, please. Yes. Welcome, welcome to the Fonseca family weblog once more. We've been to the school fete today, which has been really quite eventful. Sit still, Jocasta. Do not get up. Nunzi, look after Mummy, please. Do not let her get up, and keep the bowl on her lap. Thank you. Good girl. As soon as we arrived, Jocasta made it to the Pim's tent to lubricate her joints in preparation for today's egg and spoon race, which she believes is hers by right to win, having had the title removed from her by the adjudicators 2 years ago. Now, I am sometimes amazed at the competitive spirit displayed by parents at the school events. The current incumbent of the Egg and Spoon Trophy is Wendy Himmel, and we heard today that she had been seen training for the event in the local park. She had been seen jogging while juggling with a spoon and an egg. I suppose if you were to try and be clever, you might call it joggling. This came as unwelcome news to Jocasta because she had sort of pretty much assumed that the title would be reclaimed by her today. But we were to find out differently, I think. Oh, Nunzi, please, just pull Mummy's hair back, put it back under the hairband, please, keep it out of the way, so if she is sick it won't get wet. There's a good girl. Thank you very much, darling. That's a very good girl. So, it's not really a headband anyway, it's a bandage, because it seems Wendy has been taking kickboxing lessons as well in preparation for today's event. And they were indeed impressive in action, although they did not faze Jocasta in the slightest. But I knew it would end in tears when Jocasta did the finger eye pantomime to Wendy. I shall show you what I mean. It a stare from close range, followed by 2 fingers and then a point. Wendy replied with a vigorous attempt at a spit into the grass at Jocasta's feet. It's not really the behaviour one would expect from a school governor, is it? Oh my goodness, just a minute. Just sit still, Jocasta, for goodness sake, that bowl will make a mess. Just sit still. How old are you? Nunzi's in charge of you, by the way. Yes, don't forget it. Anyway, it was won in the end by Mrs. Lennister, the new head, who was completely oblivious to the carnage that was taking place behind her, the furore, the fracas. Luckily, James Himmel and myself were on hand to prevent a full bloodbath ensuing. But certainly all of the other competitors were taken out by the scuffle. And myself and James received some war wounds, and James himself had his glasses broken. You know, I saw a programme earlier this week about how babies with extra testosterone exposure in the womb could grow up displaying masculine traits or be extra good at sports. Now, one of the ways you tell this is by examining the length of the ring finger versus the forefinger. I think Jocasta's due an examination because she definitely displays masculine traits, as does the fragrant Wendy Himmel. Because immediately after they had been separated and it had all calmed down, they chummed up and become best of buddies with their arms around each other. They repaired to the Pim's tent. Hence, the bowl on the lap and the sea shanties. I'll be back in touch again soon. Bye-bye. Welcome to the Fonseca family weblog. Dropped Nunzi and Jeb off at school this morning. As I was leaving through the car park, I happened upon Napier Pear talking to Mrs. Dobbs. Their discussion seemed quite animated. I am absolutely sure that he is trying to influence her decision about who gets on the gifted and talented register. And I don't need to bang on about this, but it's very important for Nunzi. I mean, it doesn't bother me personally, or Jocasta. It's for Nunzi's sake. She's a talented young lady, very clever. So anyway, I thought I had better break up the cosy little meeting. So I parked the car and I rushed over, but I felt it difficult to interject somehow. They were so sort of involved in what they were talking about. I ended up sort of hovering in the vicinity. And then it was only when they both broke off their conversation and looked down at my feet to see, as I did, and found myself standing in the only puddle in the car park, that sufficient space was given for me to jump in. "Mrs. Dobbs," I said, "do you want anything for the school?" She looked a little nonplussed, as indeed I felt, because what is there that an ecology centre, apart from education, can give to the children of the school? It hardly Harrods or Waitrose, is it? She smiled and shook her head, so I thought I'd better prompt her with some ideas. I said, "Pipettes, seed trays." I'm sure Napier Pear was smirking at this. I tried my final offer as Mrs. Dobbs turned to walk away. I said, "Bulbs," and he said, "Electrical or vegetable?" And when I looked at his face, it was deadpan. There was no hint of any sarcasm. So what was I to do? I had to engage with the man in conversation, serious conversation. And the only way I could extricate myself from his odious presence was to eventually promise him some organic onion bulbs and a couple of 200-watt electrical bulbs for his greenhouse. It was humiliating. And now I'm going to have to ask Jackie to deliver them to Napier Towers because I couldn't bear to be humiliated anymore. Added to that, I've had a complaint from school about Jeb's language, which I'm going to have to address. When he comes in from school, I shall be quizzing him about it. So for now, bye-bye. Welcome to the Fonseca family weblog. At our last meeting, young Jeb, my son, had been accused of using offensive language at school. I can fully believe he has heard bad language because sometimes Joe Caster does the school run. But curiously, this alleged use of bad language at school has laid bare what Edward Napier and Mrs. Dobbs were discussing. I'm sure of it. But, that aside, I think Paco Bustamente misheard Jeb's shout. Jeb is not in the slightest bit malicious, and he knows that Paco is not from the Indian subcontinent but from the Philippines. However, his teacher, Ms. Buff, is very right on, and she sees un-PC miscreants throughout the whole of year one. She suggested he join the new after-school club, which will help him learn to appreciate other people, other nationalities. Well, surprise, surprise. It's called Young Amnesty. Exactly. It has Napier's signature all over it. An after-school club helping at the same time to ingratiate himself further with the teachers at the head. Now, I need a strategy to counter this, I believe, and even the playing field up a little, or Napier Jr. will be on the list, as discussed in our earlier blogs. I'm going to put my thinking cap on. Bye. I have it. The foil to Young Amnesty. Green Club. It's a brilliant idea, and it's so much better than boring human rights. Green Club will encourage the youngsters to care for their environment. It's bigger than human rights. It's bigger than animal rights. It could be called Planet Rights. I may change the name from Green Club to Planet Rights. It's about protecting the whole environment, animals, plants, even the air we breathe. I think the children will be much more interested in those sorts of things that they can touch and feel and see than writing stuffy old letters about prisoners of conscience. I'm sorry, Joe Costa? Exactly. Well, exactly. A point well made. As you say, why would they be in prison if they hadn't done anything wrong? Indeed. And I believe it's only used as a last resort too. If you were continually asked in a very nice way to stop doing things and you carried on, well, there are going to be consequences, aren't there? Sorry? Well, indeed. Indeed. I mean, if I wrote something to the newspaper about Councillor Peter Snoddy and accused him, let's say, of something, or let's say misuse of funds during an ecology trip to the Gambia last year, well, I'd be in trouble as well. Say again? You don't like Green Club? You don't like Planet Rights? Well, what do you like? I say, well, it may have been catchy in Stalin's Soviet times, Joe Custer, but I think death to thoughtless bastards is probably not going to get a round of applause on the governor's committee meeting, is it? We maybe rethink it. Anyway, I'm so excited. I'll speak to you soon. Bye. Well, good morning. Welcome to a very early blog. I have been unable to sleep since my last weblog, for I fear I may have misled some of my watchers. When I mentioned Councillor Peter Snoddy, the inventory holder for the Ecology Centre, in my weblog, it was of course in no way a criticism of him, either real or implied. His name popped into my head only as an example of a very senior person within the council who could, not is, open to some quite unfair criticism. The trip to the Gambia last year was fully sanctioned by the council, and I now understand that language lessons can be specially approved of for council employees. English is the main language, of course, in the Gambia, as we all know, but two of the very important tribal languages are Mandinka and Wolof. I mistakenly believed at the time that these were the names of the two young lady teachers who were taking a shower in Councillor Snoddy's hotel suite that afternoon, and I would like to set the record straight. I have been so worried that I've upset somebody. Anyway, I just wanted to put that straight. Okay, so bye for now. Was that alright, Peter? Welcome back to my weblog. I'm a little bit disappointed. The school governors and Mrs. Dobbs were slightly lukewarm about my Green Club idea. The main objection came from Mr. Bustamante on the grounds that ecological science is still embryonic and contentious in a number of areas. I actually think it's just because he runs the local landfill site for the council, and he views me, rightly, I'm proud to say, as something of a global warrior for our planet. I'm sorry, Joe Custer. Rank? I don't have a rank. Oh, I see, very funny. Private parts. A general nuisance. Yes. You can always be relied upon, Joe Custer, to bring a debate down to its lowest common denominator. And before you ask, no, it's not quite as full of programme as I had hoped. Still, from small acorns, great oaks do grow. Half an hour every fourth Monday in the evening. Say again? Yes, animals. It's an opportunity for the pupils to show their pets off to the other children, and I will be giving them the lowdown on the sorts of foods they like and the animals' origins, that sort of thing. Yeah. I'm sorry? Well, the uncharitable may say a pet's club, but it's not. Say again, Joe Caster. No, as I have said, it is the Green Club. It does not feature the word pet in any way, shape or form. And we shall be using the whole of the gym. I know where you're going with this. We shan't be using any corners at all. No. There is some good news, you know. Edward Napier was unable to come to the governor's meeting, so, for now at least, no young amnesty. Oh dear. Well, I think it's for the best. He was unable to come because it seems one of his clients absconded. And as far as freeing other people from prison goes, I think Jocasta summed it up very well yesterday evening. If they're not in jail, they'll be somewhere else, probably lighting fires, living rough, and leaving litter behind. How ecologically friendly is that? Creating pollution. I know which solution I'd choose for that conundrum. So until later, bye-bye. Good morning. I thought I'd update you on last night's inaugural session of Green Club. It went very well, apart from me having to correct every child and remind them that it was not actually called Pet's Corner. Fun night was had by all. I was able to interact with the children and help them learn a little bit more about their pets, and indeed I was taught about some of their pets. Lucy Wills gave me her little hamster, Rogan Josh, to look after, and this led to the first incident of the night. I put him down for the briefest instant while I helped recapture the proverbial box of frogs. And when I returned, he had gone. I should have realised. I mean, hamsters are very quick movers, aren't they? But luckily Mrs. Dobbs was on hand, and she's a bit of an amateur sleuth. And she followed a trail of hamster droppings to a sack which lay abandoned on the floor. She then proceeded very bravely, I felt, to hold on to Rogan Josh's back legs amidst an awful lot of violent hissing and thrashing to prevent Paco Bustamente's boa constrictor finishing off his light evening snack. And surprisingly enough, when we had wrested Rogan from the jaws of death, he was still alive. He was a little lopsided looking, and his fur was all wet and spiky. But when quizzed about this by Lucy Wills, I was able to convince her he had actually just fallen over in his cage and banged himself against the wheel. She seemed happy with that. Although I did get an old-fashioned look from Mrs. Dobbs. Later on, I did get a phone call from Lucy Wills's mother asking if somebody had been spinning his wheel too fast, as he did seem to have a touch of vertigo and was sicking up blood occasionally. I do hope he recovers. They're quite hardy little beasts, hamsters. More tales from Green Club, I'm sure, in the future. But for now, bye-bye. Good afternoon. I wanted to share with you some information about little Rogan Josh, the hamster from the other day. Many of you have written into me. My post bag has grown immeasurably since that incident because people are concerned about little Rogan Josh's health. Well, I can assure you, I've heard from a very good source, he is in fine health. He is in fact completely recovered, almost, and is dining out with his furry little friends on his tale of how he survived being grabbed by the boa constrictor Raoul. So, I'm sorry, just a moment. Sorry, Jocasta. He's stiff. Which part of him? All of him. Oh dear. That would explain why Mrs. Wills was so frosty with me in Waitrose earlier today. That's not good. Who told you, Jocasta? Mrs. Dobbs. Oh, well, that's disappointing, especially after her bravery in wresting him from the jaws of the snake. It doesn't look very good for me either, since she now not only knows that I lied to Lucy Wills about the cause of poor little Rogan's injuries, but I also didn't look after him when I was meant to, which caused it all in the first place. Oh dear, that's a mountain I'm going to have to climb. Still, moving on. Product placement. Has anyone heard of it? I haven't until I received an email from one of my public, to wit, releaseroger79@aol.com. Release Roger, very funny. You're alluding, of course, I think, to my Amnesty International jibes of earlier in the week. Very funny. Anyway, product placement, for those who don't know, is the placing or showing of a product, a brand, on a program, a film, the TV, or a weblog. And the director, the maker of that program, then receives remuneration in money terms, or perhaps gets to keep the item or items that he's displayed while running the program. Rank commercialism. I'm not that keen on it, although that isn't to say a lot of people won't use it. I'm sorry to step to the other side of the field, the other side of the hedge, running alongside the field, which is ecology, which is my expertise. But if people ask me these questions, I guess they want me to give an answer, which I will do. So, I have another couple of questions from my public to answer. The first one is from two people, Brer Rabbit and Rough Rider. I would say most definitely yes, I would agree with you. More seriously, I have another email from Rudolf Ucker at virgin.net, and I believe it would be his wife, Daff. I most certainly would say you shouldn't do that. The police won't be at all happy with it. Take it from me. Good strong coffee. Nothing like it. Anyway, for now, I'll say bye-bye, but please keep the questions coming in, and I'll be running my normal blog as usual. So for now, I guess, take it easy, chill out, get yourself a nice cup of coffee, sit down and relax. Bye-bye. Oh, I didn't switch the camera off. I must attend to that. Annunciata wants a horse. Or pony, Daddy. She used the assumptive clause that's used in sales very often. It brooks no refusal, only opens the way to negotiation. The negotiation in this case is, would it be a huge, expensive to feed horse, or will it be a small, expensive to feed pony? She's the consummate saleswoman, and she doesn't get it from me. I know Jocasta's behind this because we had a conversation about this earlier. And true, our garden is bigger than a postage stamp. Hyperbole as ever from Jocasta. It's a sizable garden, and it does have a stable on it. And next door's garden is available for rent as a paddock. However, the stable is filled with junk. Even more so since we had to clear Marguerite, Jocasta's mother's house after the police incident. In there is a pile of worthless rubbish with a few things that I've heard of. There's the antique ice axe from Hillary's expedition to Everest in the 50s. Jocasta's mother was a noted climber of her own in those days, and she met Hillary in Kathmandu on his return from Everest, and he gave her one. There's also a pair of running crampons used by the Dalai Lama himself in his escape across the glaciers of Tibet from the pursuing and vengeful Chinese army. There's an 8-foot long crocodile, fully stuffed, which had intended to use Jocasta's mother as breakfast while she was washing her smalls in the Irrawaddy Delta in late 48, I believe it was. I think he bit off more than he could chew there. And also there are some nail clippings from Ernest Hemingway himself, still within one of his muddy safari socks, plus an assortment of all sorts of other junk that's in there. I just don't know how they've accumulated so much. My family hasn't got anywhere near as many things stashed away. I mean, my father chose to be frugal early on, in the 50s I think, and he took a clear stance about clutter, and we weren't allowed to retain anything that didn't have a useful purpose. I'm sorry, Jocasta. No, we were not destitute. We chose to divest ourselves of all things unusable or extraneous to our lives. No. No. No, 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 no. Nunzi, could you close the door, please? Mummy's being silly. Thanks, darling. More about the horse or pony, I'm sure, later. But I'm feeling a little peckish. I think I will sit myself down with a nice bowl of cereal, which is always a welcome break in the afternoon. So until next time, bye-see-bye. I always think one of the most brilliant things about waking up in the morning, apart from still being alive that is the thought that breakfast won't be far away. And one of the things that sets me up for a hard day's work at the Ecology Centre is some hot buttered toast and lovely marmalade. I just thought I'd share that with you. Anyway, today what I'm going to do is I thought I would respond to my online public, answer their questions while I'm talking to you, so you can see a sort of two-way conversation going on. We are a 21st century family of Fonsecas. Jocasta is through in the other room. She's surfing the web with her iPad 2 as I do my weblog. The children, Nunzi and Jeb, are playing with Nintendo DS's, which they were bought for their birthdays. Hours of fun and really quite intellectually stimulating, which of course is most important for children. That's why the Doreen Kindersley range of books also features on our shelves. Anyway, let's read some of the correspondence and see if we can answer some questions for some people. We've got a full bag at the moment. Many of them are from the ubiquitous hotmail.co.uk stable of emails. I guess it's because it's a very, very convenient source of email address. Not too much fuss in opening one up. Okay, so the first question is worm farms, right up my street. Little Red Riding Hood, she sounds a nice young lady, asks if I can give some advice about building a worm farm. Well, of course I can. I'm an ecologist. I'll respond personally to her later, but I'll just give her a brief overview, and it may be of interest to you as well. So what you need first of all is a worm house, approximately 30 centimetres by 19.5 centimetres. You need some tunnelling material and perhaps a little soil. Note that if you have children under 5, they will probably eat the worms, so it's probably best to leave it till they're older than 5. I'm actually serious about that. The worms will get eaten if you have an under 5 who has access to the worm farm. And it's not really very nice for the worms, is it, I suppose? Anyway, I will respond to Little Red Riding Hood later. Now here's another one, this time from Ruthie Rubber. I think I'll read that one later. Joe Caster, will you please stop laughing so loudly? Keep the noise down. You're not listening to me, are you? Good. Eavesdropping. Ah, here's one. This one is from Paella Porridge 333. Wants to know if I've got a... Well, I'm not sure what that means. Hadron. Do they mean a collider? I need some clarification on that. I'm an ecologist, not a physicist. I'll respond to her now while you're watching. Dear Paella Porridge 333, are you referring to the LHC, Large Hadron Collider at CERN in Switzerland? If so, I'm afraid I will have to disappoint you. I am in Rutland, UK, and I have no access to or ever have used Hadron. Send. Joe Caster, can you keep the noise down, please? Nunzi, could you close the door, please? Mummy's laugh is annoying. I think somebody must have hurt themselves. Right, who's next? Oh, gosh, a reply from Paella Porridge 333. From where do the children come then? Immaculate Conception. Oh, very bloody funny. Good old Zach has fallen for it again. Oh, and there's the bloody marmalade. Where are we? Replayed that bit. Hi Joe Caster. Nice bike ride. You're back early. Jeb and Nunzi stopped squabbling now. Great, great. Me, oh, I'm just getting ready for my weblog. Yes, check my emails, perform for my public, that sort of thing. Oh, no, the monitor, yes, I'm just having a bit of a problem with it. I'm trying to sort it out. Yes. Guilty? What about? No, it's alright. I'll sort it out, don't worry. You carry on. Yeah. Okay, thanks. Destroy the evidence, I think. Okay. God, it's running! Hi and welcome to the weblog. I thought I might have missed it today. I've been rather debilitated by a dicky tummy. Fortunately, our friends at Kimberly Clark and their excellent product Andrex were close at hand, so I didn't have any major upsets. Anyway, I'm here now. I wanted to just explain about what some of you may have mistaken the other day as a proper broadcast by myself. It was a spurious broadcast brought about by a rather temperamental webcam. Some of you may have seen me while I researched a website. But there was nothing wrong with this. All I was doing was following a link from one of my correspondents. Now, that link led me to a film. What film, you may ask? I'll tell you. Little Red Riding Hood. Now that's a favourite fairy tale of our children, possibly yours. I was keen to see the modernised version of said film. Well, I was shocked. The Little Red Riding Hood on this film bore no relation to the young lady in my fairy tales as a boy, and how she ever got to know such a horrible person as Wolfie Wolf, the riding instructor, and the antics they got up to, I have no explanation for. I was quite shocked. I've even thought about writing to the authorities about this. But what it did do was it made me research other fairy tales which have been misappropriated. Little Bo Peep, Little Miss Muffet, that's been changed quite considerably. I just tell you this as a warning. Please don't be suckered into looking at those sites. They're quite indescribable. Anyway, I wanted to share that with you. I wanted to make sure there was no misunderstandings. This is a family weblog. I am an adult, but I take my responsibilities very seriously for my public. So that's it for now. I'm going to say bye-bye, and I will speak to you next time. Joe Custer, have you still got that riding crop? And the stirrups? Oh, no reason. No reason. Hello and welcome once again to the Ffonseca family weblog. That's Ffonseca. You will understand why I stress that later. I'm still waiting for these PR bods to contact me and let me know about lucrative use of my weblogs for their product placement. Hello, anyone out there? I've not even had one sniff yet, and quite frankly I need to up my income. Joe Costa and I have had a discussion about Nunzi and Jeb's future, and quite honestly we feel that we need to up our game in respect of their education. This gifted and talented register nonsense at the school is a bit of a damp squib. It is producing nothing, unless of course you're Robert Napier and your father's wealthy enough to provide the school with a whole bloody wing this time. They're even having a grand opening and a naming ceremony. They've asked everyone to put forward ideas for a new name. I suggested, why don't you call it Edward Napier Wing, to Mrs. Dobbs, and I'm afraid the irony was completely missed on her. She said, "Do you really think so, Mr. Ffonseca?" Ffonseca! It's Ffonseca! Hello and welcome to the weblog. I'm afraid I had a bit of bad news earlier today. The innovative and very popular Green Club at the school has now been superseded by the introduction of the Young Amnesty Club, headed up by Edward Napier. So a rural county like Rutland, complete with its large numbers of children and their pets, is to be ignored in favour of some dinky little letter writing forum for nerdy Labour Party wannabes, and headed up by a pompous, preening peacock of a lawyer. As they say, go figure. Anyway, I've been trying to place products in these weblogs, as you know, and I've not had a sniff of interest from anybody in the PR world, who I believe handles this sort of thing for companies. No matter who I've written to or emailed or telephoned, I've had no response, and it's really a little bit disappointing, but I believe it's because I need to show the products in action for real, with a real person like me using them. So here we go. Cereal. I love cereal. I'll eat it in the morning, I'll eat it in the afternoon, I'll even sometimes eat it in the evening. It's marvellous stuff, very quick to prepare and very satisfying. So there we are, a real person talking about a real product. Okay? Oh, some of you may remember recently I had a very bad tummy upset which left me quite debilitated at times. However, if you remember, I was supported in my agonies by these people. There used to be 9 rolls in there, there's now only 3. So you can see it's been very efficacious in treating me. Oh, there's the postman. Just a moment. Oh yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Bye. A letter. A letter, no less, from Product Placement Partners. Well, well, well. We shall see what they have to say. Excellent. Dear Mr. Fonseca, spelt with 3 F's, thank you for your... Our clients demand that you cease and desist from using their products in your video logs. They feel it is not conducive to good brand management to align their quality products with you. Me, that means, I think. Years are spent developing a brand that our customers trust and respect. Unfortunately, our client feels that you are denigrating these brands. You are not giving any of the products concerned the correct sort of exposure. Should you fail to abide by our request, legal action may follow. Have a nice day. Denigrating the brand after all the work I've put in? Not giving it the right exposure? Who's writing all this nonsense, you may ask? Well, I'll tell you who. Bloody lawyers. Lawyers at product placement, lawyers at the school. Bloody lawyers. Well, here's a bit of brand placement for you. In the bloody bin. This is rubbish anyway. There you go. And these. Oh, let's see if we can make them a bit bloody softer. In fact, I'm going to give them some exposure. Just like you wanted me to. Right, there we go. Advertising in action. There we are. No, Jocasta, don't touch